Knowing how and where an image will be used will affect how color profiles and color spaces are used. If the image is going to be printed, knowing what type of printing will be used will help determine color space and bit depth. So let's take a look at some of the possibilities. If the image is destined for viewing exclusively on the web, then your choice is simple. You need to prepare an 8-bit sRGB file. While many people denigrate the sRGB space, like it or not, it is the color space of the web and also of most consumer-grade computer monitors. In addition, it is also the color space of most commercial photolab printers. sRGB is not bad in any way, and we've all lived with it for years and never complained that our prints don't have enough deep yellow in them. While it is lacking in depth for certain colors, we just have to live with it for the time being. Inkjet printing is another issue. The color gamut of these printers varies wildly depending on the level of the printer, the number of inks, and perhaps most importantly, the type and quality of paper being used. In the past, inkjet printing was a limiting factor for color and tone, but today's professional level printers can far surpass what most any monitor can show and can display certain colors that greatly exceed the Adobe RGB color space. For most users, the limiting factor is now the monitor. This is why investing in a display capable of showing the Adobe RGB space is critical for fine art and color-critical printing. For images going out to digital and conventional printing presses, there are some guidelines depending on where you sit in the production workflow. If you were a photographer preparing images to be printed on press, you would generally want to keep working in 16-bit ProPhoto space. Unless you have a specific reason for doing so, this should always be your default way of working. When you're ready to send to prepress, export an 8-bit Adobe RGB file. The reason for this is that Adobe RGB completely encompasses both the sRGB and CMYK spaces, and thereby maintains all of the colors these spaces can reproduce. You may run into a situation where you are asked to provide files in CMYK. This should raise some warning flags because, well, CMYK is a color space, it's not a profile. Within the CMYK world, there are many profiles depending on what type of printer and paper surface are being used. Is the piece being printed on a dry ink digital press? Is it being printed on coated or uncoated web press? This should be the job of the pre-press people doing the conversions. Despite this, a photographer could find themselves being put in this position. Should this happen, the best option would be to do a soft proof and perform a basic color space conversion to CMYK. It's not ideal, but at least you're providing the best possible file, and we'll see how to do this a little later in the course.